Hey guys, and welcome to my channel. My name is Nick O'Leary, and today we're looking at the 10 most asked questions on YouTube from you guys in the comment section down below. So we'll be covering things like kilometers an hour on your dashboard to active lane keeping assist found on some selected models, and even this little red warning triangle found here. So let's start out with number 1, which is your Sat Nav volume. So now guys, it's quite common knowledge where the volume is, of course, on your car. Usually it's on the steering wheel or of course in the middle of the car. But did you know to adjust the Sat Nav volume, which is quite a common question, all you do is adjust the volume in one of those two places with whatever's making noise at the time. So let me explain. For example, I've got the radio on at the moment. Of course, if I adjust the volume, it's going to adjust the volume for the radio. However, if you're on a phone call, for example, adjust the volume and it will adjust the volume for the phone call only. Same goes for the voice assistant. Adjust the volume while the voice assistant is talking to you and it will only adjust the volume for that. And then finally, the same goes for the Sat Nav volume. So for example, if I load up the Sat Nav here, mute and unmute it to get her talking.
Please proceed to the highlighted route.
I can adjust the volume for that, and as soon as she stops talking, it reverts back to the entertainment volume, then you adjust the volume on there. So quite simply, just adjust the volume for the thing that's making sound out of the speakers at that very moment in time. Now up next is a common question about the tyre pressures. So if you've ever looked at them on the instrument cluster by pressing home and going across to the service menu, and then go down to tyres, you'll see that you have tyre pressures for each individual wheel. Sadly not in this car because this one hasn't been driven because it's inside, but certainly if you've been driving around you'll see your tyre pressures for the left, right, front and rear. However, you'll notice that they're all displayed in kPa, which stands for a kilopascal. Basically it's a unit of measurement used to determine air pressure and that sort of thing on the inside of a tyre. However, that's used by countries that use the metric system. So, of course, Mercedes-Benz being designed in Germany, that follows over with the cars, this unit of measurement. Of course, as I'm based in the UK, we actually use PSI, which is pounds per square inch. Now, sadly, you can't change this on the car, but it does show you both on the fuel filler cap. So you've got PSI and kPa for reference. But a little tip and trick, if you use the Mercedes Me app, you can actually change the unit of measurement for the Mercedes Me app only. So if you open up your Mercedes Me app, press the menu button on the top left hand corner, then go to settings, then press units, and then in here you can scroll down to the bottom where tyre pressures are and change this to either bar, PSI or kPa. Now sadly, as I mentioned, this doesn't copy across to the car, but if you do use the Mercedes Me app, at least you can see that there, and of course both are shown on the fuel filler cap for comparison. Now next up guys is, well, this blue kind of turquoisey ring found on the Sat Nav. So you'll primarily find this if you own a plug-in hybrid or an all-electric car or some form of electrification, and quite simply it just shows you how far you can drive based on the current state of charge of your battery. So this one, for example, just over half charged, and I can drive pretty much anywhere within that ring there on electric. And of course, as you drive around based on the current traffic conditions and your current state of charge of your battery, that ring will get smaller as you use it up, but as soon as you put it on charge again, it will get larger. So it's just a visual representation of how far you can drive on electric. Now, if you just bought a brand new car, then you may notice that the USB ports are slightly smaller than normal. So these new USB ports are called USB-C, and they're quite commonly found on new cars, new laptops and new phones and that sort of thing. Now of course, if you don't have a brand new phone to go with your new car, then you may need to get a USB-C to USB adapter or dongle. Now I personally use these ones all the time. So this one is a USB-C to USB dongle, and quite simply it just does that conversion so you can use your existing cable and phone, of course, with your car. So all you do is plug that into the USB-C port, and then the ends there is just a normal USB, and it kind of does that conversion for you. Now I'll pop a link down below if you want to get this exact one, just in the description, but at least that one of course does that little conversion, and it does work with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto as well. Now next up in the list then guys is kilometers an hour. So this is quite a common question. Now of course, if you're in the UK, you should have all your units and everything set to miles an hour, but people do ask if you can change this one over on the top right hand corner of the instrument cluster where it says kilometers an hour. Now actually no, you can't, because it is actually a legal requirement to have miles an hour and kilometers an hour somewhere on your dashboard. So let me explain. If I change the design on this one back to classic just to make it a little bit easier to understand. Now with some manufacturers you will have miles an hour over on the left hand side and kilometers an hour written in small. Now Mercedes-Benz haven't chosen to do this, so they've just kept it nice and simple just with miles an hour. So that's all well and good. However, kilometers an hour needs to be shown somewhere on your dashboard as for a legal requirement, so you know what speed you're doing. So what Mercedes-Benz have done is actually put kilometers an hour over on the top right hand corner in a digital format so you can see it. Now as I said, you sadly can't change that. Of course you've got your miles an hour in the middle, and of course in some cars you can pop it right in the middle here and make it nice and big, but you do have to have kilometers an hour somewhere on your dashboard, so that one at the top can't be changed. Now, a common question with Mercedes-Benz owners is, how do you turn the car on completely silently, like with no radio or anything like that? Yes, you could switch the multimedia system off by holding the volume button down or pressing the off button in this area here. However, when it's like this, your phone's not going to connect or anything like that. So if anyone rings you while you're on that journey, yes, you might be driving in silence, but then you can't answer the phone. So there is a kind of workaround to get the car to switch on without having your radio on, so it starts silently but still has your phone connected. So quite simply, all you do is just select another audio source that doesn't have anything in it. So for example, if I select USB, when you next turn the car on, because there's no USB devices plugged in, it will start completely silently. Now up next then guys is installing a child seat in your Mercedes-Benz. So you may notice up front there isn't a switch or anything to turn off the passenger airbag or anything, and the reason for this, I'm sure it's because Mercedes-Benz want to encourage safety for all passengers and the driver as well, and they actually encourage child seats to be placed in the rear of the car. So if you look really closely here, there's actually ISOFIX anchor points, so they connect to the underbody of the seat just to keep that child seat in position. Now, I'm no expert on child seats, so it's best to seek expert advice to make sure it's installed correctly, and of course you've got the right one. Mercedes-Benz do actually sell child seats on their website, and handily, once you install one of these specific ones, they do actually automatically deactivate the front passenger airbag. However, if you're using a non-Mercedes-Benz one, then the recommendation is to install them in the rear on the dedicated ISOFIX points, and make sure to use the top tether point as well for maximum stability. Now, lots of modern cars these days have safety systems as standard to keep everyone safe on the road, and Mercedes-Benz is no exception. A lot of them now have active lane keeping assist, just like this car here. Basically, there's a little radar at the top scanning the road ahead, and it monitors your position in a lane. So if you drift over a white lane marking without indicating, the car can either rumble the steering wheel or brake one side of the car to jolt you back into lane. Now, some people have asked if you can turn this off permanently. Sadly, you can't, as it is a safety system, just like ESP, parking sensors. All of these things do default to on when you power cycle the ignition, but you can turn it off very quickly by going to Settings, tap on Quick Access, and then underneath here you can see the active lane keeping assist. If you go in here, tap that button, you can actually turn that off temporarily for your journey. Now, next on the list then guys is a red warning triangle on your instrument cluster. So if you see this, it basically just means you're a little too close to the car in front. It forms part of the active brake assist safety system, which a lot of Mercedes-Benz have. This actually has 3 stages to this system. So number 1, you'll see the red warning triangle on the screen in front of you. Number 2, it can actually sound a very unique sound just like this. And then number 3, it can actually apply the brakes to prevent a crash on a car in front of you. Now, thanks to Euro NCAP, they have actually done this test multiple times on many models, and you can see it in action here. It'll show you the light, then it'll make the sound, and then it can actually apply the brakes to stop a crash. So in answer to everyone's frequently asked question, if you see the red warning triangle, it basically just means you're a little too close to the car in front. And while we're on the topic of instrument cluster lights, if you ever see this green ready, it basically means the car's ready to go. Now, you'll commonly find this on mild hybrids, plug-in hybrids and all electric cars. Quite simply because the cars can start quite quietly, and believe it or not, this car is actually on right now. You can't hear it. So if I did put my foot on the brake pedal and go into drive, the car would actually move. So it's quite simply an indication to let you know that the car is on, because traditionally with internal combustion engines you can actually hear the engine. In this it is completely silent, so it's purely just an indication to let you know that the engine or the electric motor is live and ready to go. And there we have it then, guys. That concludes this week's video on the 10 most asked questions on Mercedes-Benz. As always, a huge shout out to Sandown Mercedes-Benz, as they help provide access to these awesome cars. So it'd be very tricky to do this without them. But guys, thank you so much for watching. Hit that like button and that subscribe button if you liked what you saw. And of course, until next week, Friday at 4 PM, we'll see you then.